everybody. It is our November Thanksgiving show. Can you believe it's November?
Yeah.
I really can. I'm still in
freezing.
August. Yeah,
I'm
look
so
at you.
cold. I got my wool
God's
socks out. I'm all bundled up.
Yeah, you really are. It's not.
I don't stay warm anymore. Yeah.
Oh, really? Because your age, probably.
Yes.
Yeah. Says the older person.
Buddy, Betsy.
What are you doing for Thanksgiving this year?
I'm having 24 people to my parents' house, but I'm doing most of the cooking.
Oh, 24?
Cleaning, yep. And my mother doesn't know it, but I'm going to rearrange her entire home to accommodate.
Well, you have to have that many people for dinner.
Yep.
I feel bad. I'm just having 7 people.
Oh, but you're still going to roast a 25-pound bird, right?
No.
Oh.
I'm having a small turkey breast, and we have gotten into the habit of having a tenderloin cooked on the grill also because not that many people in my family like turkey. And seeing all the wild turkeys around here has made us less and less desirous of turkey.
Do you see, like, cows? It's okay.
I have seen no cows here.
I can't eat those beautiful birds.
I have seen no cows.
Oh, okay.
So I continue to eat my hamburger, etc.
You think about that in the new year.
I am going to think about that.
Yeah.
So, what's going on with Mary Poppins?
Oh my goodness, my daughter and my daughter's starring in it. My husband is portraying many small roles in it.
At the Katuitt Center for the Arts.
I haven't seen them in 7 weeks.
Oh, because they've been rehearsing and rehearsing.
Yep, and everyone's cranky in my house.
Oh,
Yeah,
how lovely.
Yeah.
When does the show start?
Opens November 20th and it goes to December 16th.
And how long is the show?
2.5 hours with
Okay.
intermission. Yeah.
Oh, I was trying to think if my 5-year-old granddaughter would be good.
Absolutely. Yep.
Oh, okay. Then I think we'll be there. So, we have a very interesting guest today. The weirdest thing happened. My husband taught history at
That's so weird.
Wait until you hear this. So he had this wonderful department head, whose name was Richard DeSorgher, and Richard was also the voice of Medfield football. So when they would do TV, he was calling all the plays. I don't even know how he did that. But and my husband was the coach. So we're down here in Mashpee, having moved here 7 years ago. Lo and behold, who do we run into but Richard DeSorgher, who has moved to Mashpee. Okay? Now, in Medfield, Richard was the president of the Historical Society or Commission or whatever it was called, we'll ask him. Now, he's here doing the same work for Mashpee. Okay? So, after we take a break, I am very thrilled to introduce Richard DeSorgher. We are about to learn some very interesting Mashpee history. We have Richard DeSorgher. I introduced you before the break. But
very kind.
First of all, how'd you ever get to Mashpee?
Well, again, I retired after 35 years of teaching history, political science up in Medfield, and my wife had retired, and we always looked to come down the Cape at some point, and we had looked around in different areas of the Cape, and the realtor said, how about Mashpee? And I really hadn't known much about Mashpee, to be honest with you. And we were right by Santuit Pond, nice area. And I just love Mashpee with the amount of conservation land. I walk a lot. With the amount of conservation land and just a great history, which I'm beginning to learn. I was coming from where I knew a lot to where I knew very little, so I'm in that learning stage now.
Absolutely. Well, did you grow up in Medfield?
I did, born and brought up, yeah.
And now you're
Graduated out of
here.
Medfield High, yeah.
Okay. Yes, I knew that. Now you're here, and you're very involved with the Mashpee Historical Society.
Well, I have my interest is with history, and I went to a couple of the meetings of the Mashpee Historical Commission, and there was a vacancy. And they said, are you interested? I said, well, I would be, and so I got appointed, and that was just about a little over a year ago.
And go ahead.
What do you take care of on the Mashpee Historical Commission?
Well, they have different kind of duties. It's a nice group that's working with Mashpee's a little different. That like in Medfield, they had a historical society, which is private, nonprofit, and every town has mandated an historical commission, which is appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So Mashpee does not have an historical society, And Mashpee is different because we have the Wampanoag tribe and the vast history that they have, plus you have, Mashpee is a fairly new town, 1870, that they come in. So there is, right across from Town Hall, the old library building, which is called the Archives Building, and that's where the headquarters of the Historical Commission is, and that's where they have, both from Town Hall and from the Historical Commission, the maps, the records, the photos of Mashpee history. So in effect, the Historical Commission in Mashpee really wears two hats. They're both kind of like the Historical Society, which preserves and saves artifacts that the normal Historical Commission would not.
Wouldn't save, okay.
Because the Historical Commission would more be dealing with preservation of the town's history and more of a governmental, whereas a society would more be saving the archives type thing. So Mashpee's Historical Commission really is doing both jobs with that. So it's an interesting place that in the archives itself.
And I hear that right now you're in the middle of a project. It has to do with a monument and the Revolutionary War,
which I read about last night again in my United States History for Dummies book, because my history background isn't so great.
So tell us what you're doing with that, 'cause that's interesting.
One of the things, there are no there are no monuments in Mashpee for the Revolutionary War, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, the current Middle Eastern wars.
None?
None in the town. There is, in front of the Baptist Church, a monument for the Civil War and World War I. And in front of Heritage Park, there is a monument that makes note of those that died in World War II. But led by Earl Mills, who is the chair of the Historic District Commission, which the bulk of Main Street is in, he always wanted the names. And when I was in Medfield, one of the things we did was in Baxter Park in Medfield, we built a very similar war memorial with the names. I just feel the names are important because those are the individuals. Right now in Mashpee Veterans Garden, there is a nice black granite monument that lists in memory of all who served in Mashpee. But we wanted to have those actual names that are listed there, and especially those that actually gave their lives. And by using that QR code research, we feel not only can we list them, but then we can also tell a story so that people will be able to, well, you know, who was this individual? What did they do? Where did they live? What were they like? So that not just a name, a monument, it's going to be a person. And this person left this town of Mashpee, they went off to war, lost their lives, or, you know, what's the story of, you know, we're here on Veterans Day, you know, talking about this, you know, the sacrifice that these people gave is just incredible. And it always bothers me sometimes as time goes on, the names of people get forgotten. As the next generation comes on, they don't know who these people are. And we want to make sure these people never get forgotten. So we started originally, there was a grant of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts under the Secretary of State's office, a $15,000 grant. We wrote a grant and was accepted. And then we had matching funds. So last year we went to a town meeting and we were able to get an additional $15,000 for the Revolutionary War Monument. And the Community Preservation Funds said, look, if you're going to do that, we need a bigger master plan of the park so that wherever you put this monument, we want to make sure that 5 years down the road, oh, why did you put it there? It should have been somewhere else. So we're also working on a master plan. So we have 3 phases. So not just the Revolutionary War, but we've decided we're going to do all wars. We're going to have a monument that will be along Main Street, kind of opposite Dunkin' Donuts, in the park itself, that will connect by a path where the Veterans Garden is now, will connect to that. So it will be a joining path that's there. And we'll have the monument that will be in there, will be lit at night, and we'll have all the names of every individual from Mashpee, of all the wars from the Revolutionary War up until the current war in Afghanistan that's going on now. So,
really
yeah,
fabulous.
yeah. So that's what we're working for. The second phase would be, there's a wooded area between the community park and what they call the Adequan lot where the community gardens are. And there would be a path, we'll call it the history path, that will go through that. And as you will walk through that pathway, there'll be signage that gives the whole history of Mashpee as you walk through. And plus the different plants and things in there would be also labeled. Earl Mills says a lot. He says, you know, Mashpee is a Wampanoag town. But if you drive through, there's very little to really show that. And we want to make sure we bring out that rich history that is Mashpee. It's a unique town, has unique history, and we want to try to show that. And then the third phase would be, and we're working with the new community garden folks who've done a great job, that Adequan lot where the Hotel Adequan used to be, that part of that will be kind of a living history for Wampanoag history that will be in there, kind of next to the garden. So those are the three phases that we're working on.
And it'll all be done?
Well, phase one, we'll look in 2020 is the anniversary, 125th anniversary of Mashpee, 1870. Make sure I get my math right. 1870 to 2020. Is that 150? 150.
Yeah.
150. I was 25 years off. When my math was not my strong suit.
That's okay.
The 150th, that we'll have the dedication of the Veterans Monument is to be one of the keystones of the anniversary celebration. So that's our goal. We just met again last week with the community preservation folks, looking for the additional funds that will come up in the May town meeting, and then we'll be able to have this dedicated as part of the anniversary.
That's fabulous,
Yeah.
fantastic. So you were telling me a story. This is really cool. Richard's last name is DeSorgher, which is difficult to spell, and I just found out for the first time today that it's a Belgian name.
Right. There's very few of us that, in fact, there's only one other DeSorgher family in the country that's here. So it's an unusual name.
Unusual. So you were looking for some documents about Mashpee. Tell us this story.
Well,
it's cool.
when I became a member of the Historical Commission, every town, every year, puts out what's called an annual town report. And in that it has who the town officers are, the birth, marriage, death, the school records, all the money that's spent, different things that go on in town. Well, when I got to the archives, Mashpee comes to town in 1870, but the annual town reports didn't start till 1903. So I said, well, where are all the earlier town reports? And they said, well, we don't have them. So we went over to town hall, the selectmen didn't have them. They said, well, we have no idea where they are. I said, well, that's really strange. I knew from research is kind of my thing, and I knew that in the State House Library keeps track of most of the town's annual town reports. So I called them up, and they said, yes, with the exception of the first 2 years, we have all the Mashpee annual town reports. So I went into the State House Library, but they said they were in such fragile condition, they would not let me photocopy them. But she said, I'll let you, on my iPhone, take pictures of them. So I said, okay. So there was a total, I ended up with a total of just over 1,000 photos I had to take of from 1872 to 1903. And then they were also missing 1910 to 1914, which I was able to get. So I had to stand over each, I'd taken my iPhone and standing over each photo, I had to line it up and take a picture of each page, starting in 1872. So I was there like almost all day. So I wasn't reading, but I was lining it up, and I looked, and when I got to 1887, I saw what I thought was the name DeSorgher, and I said, well, that can't be, and I looked closely, and it was. And sure enough, it was my grandmother, Mary Lee DeSorgher, who taught school in the North School here in Mashpee, 1887 to 1889.
And you never had any idea?
We had no knowledge of this at all, and she had my grandfather, who was 7, 8, 9 years old, who went to school in the North School. So I'm used to being called a washershore, being new here, and I said, wait a minute. Now I can say I have my grandmother that goes back here to 1887. Now the strange part was, this is an odd story, is my grandfather great-grandfather, age 17, came over from Belgium, he was the ship's carpenter, jumped ship in Boston Harbor, and stayed here. Marries this Mary Lee of the Connecticut Lees. They have one child, my grandfather. And then what he did, they lived in Boston, he brought his mother over from Belgium. Well, the mother and Mary Lee don't get along, and she said, either the mother goes or I go. And he says, well, I can't send my mother back to Belgium. And she said, see you later. And she took my grandfather, and we thought, she was a school teacher, we thought she went to the town of Franklin and taught in the school there. We never knew she came down here to Mashpee. So as I'm looking at this, I let out a what? And I'm in this quiet library, you know, and everybody's like looking at me. I couldn't believe that. So that was a mystery. We never knew why she came to Mashpee. We have no knowledge of that. By 1890, she is in Franklin. And then in 1900, the mother dies, and she packs up my grandfather. They go back, knock on the door, and said, we're back. And they live happily ever after, celebrating their 50th anniversary and everything. So
The way to do it.
So why, my wife thinks that Mary had drawn me back here to Mashpee or something. But what a coincidence, I couldn't believe. So I actually have here, so you don't think I'm false news here, but here's 1887, and sure enough, here's Mary Lee DeSorgher, who earned $89 teaching school that year. And she also taught in the summer session, which usually the boys attended because they were working in the fields and whatnot. And she earned $10 teaching summer school in that as well. And we're guessing that most teachers back then would have boarded. I was trying to guess, where did she live in the years that she was down here? Earl Mills was telling me probably the house that is on Great Neck North, right next to the town hall, almost the meeting house, that those folks boarded a lot of the teachers. So she taught in the North School, which is where town hall is now. We have photos of that. So yeah, that was interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to me. That is really, and you never knew anything.
We had no knowledge of that whatsoever. So.
It's an
Very
amazing
strange,
story.
yeah.
Amazing.
So I have some roots here.
Yeah, you
after
sure
all,
do. I think I call
internationally.
that synchronicity. That is very unusual. And I now want to take a real long walk down around all that area because I really only glanced there. It sounds interesting.
Well,
it sounds like a good show.
And once the monument gets in, we have, this is really unbelievable. We have research and document, we have at least 57 individuals from Mashpee who fought in the Revolutionary War. 14 died. Almost all of them are Wampanoags. Now, you have to look, the treatment of the Wampanoags in history is just horrible. And they had received some degree of some rights, being able to self-determine just before the Revolutionary War. But the fact that many Wampanoags went off and fought for this new United States, for freedom, for rights. Then, unfortunately, right after this new United States, we defeat Great Britain and we become a country, the first thing they do is they take away the bulk of those rights. So, you know, what kind of gratitude, you know, they fought. And if you look, the percent of population of Mashpee is the highest on the Cape. That went in and fought in the Revolutionary War for the United States. A nearby town of Sandwich had a large number of Tories, not so here.
Oh, that's where you're from.
Yeah.
It's still.
So we want to, it's a tremendous history and contribution that the Wampanoags made, especially in the Revolutionary War. And then to have these rights taken away. You know,
And to be that mistreated.
It's
awful. Unbelievable.
It's awful.
Which does lead me to segue into our present political awful scene. Give me some thoughts, Richard. What do you think?
Well, I said, I taught, in addition to U.S. history, I taught political science. I said, I'm glad I'm not teaching political science now. I think it's, as a teacher point of view, very difficult for kids today. You know, I grew up in the 50s when Eisenhower was president, And used to be a local show here out of Boston that was called Big Bob, and it was kind of a kid show. And they would start, I'm going to really date myself, they would drink this chocolate milk with what's called Bosco.
Oh,
was put
I
into
remember
it.
that.
Remember Bosco?
Love that.
But they would play Hail to the Chief, and I would pour my Bosco, and you would drink a toast to President Eisenhower. Well, it was something, a president was something you had respect for, and you got respect back. I think, and I don't care what the political views are, just for kids looking at President Trump with just the way, the uncivil language and the tweets of just ripping people apart. I feel real bad for kids growing up today of what's their view of what
I
the
totally
president
agree.
is for.
Dignity, civility,
That whole
gravitas.
thing, and taking certain groups of people and
Kindness.
just bad-mouthing, and that to me bothers me a lot. I mean, people can argue the politics of it, but just being civil and representing our country, and that really bothers me.
Oh,
And especially as a teacher,
absolutely.
I would find it difficult today with all this going on to try to maintain that.
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you, as an English teacher, a former high school English teacher, I'm a little disgusted and embarrassed about just the vocabulary, the way he puts his sentences together.
Yeah.
It's really hard to even tell one's grandchildren, you can't hand that in because you haven't expanded
Right,
your vocabulary or made
right.
long enough sentences or whatever,
Right.
and then you listen to him and he sounds like...
Well, and the other thing, if you looked at this past election, the division we're in as a country. I mean, look at the number of, because I'm this political geek that stays up till 3 in the morning and watching all the returns and everything. But if you look at them, the number of, 50.1, 49.
Yeah.
The number of close races, not just in Florida and Arizona, but throughout the country, the number of close races, of how divided we are on a number of these issues.
I don't think we're divided. I think it's the number of, it comes down to voting numbers and the people who are voting. I think we actually have the majority. Kindness and truth is actually a much larger group of the electorate of the population, but the people who vote, these numbers are not representative of our community at large.
What do you think?
Well, I had one, as a history teacher, one question I could never answer the kids, and I'm beginning to think I'd be able to answer it now. The kids would say to me, we were studying World War II and the Holocaust, the kids would say, how could the German people follow someone like Hitler? And I could never really give them a good answer. And I'm not comparing Trump to Hitler.
Oh, you can.
You can.
Well, but
me
I
coach.
am saying that when you get a group that so follows someone, this so-called base, that no matter what this a person says, that they're just going to blindly follow, and suddenly now the news is the enemy, and we're not going to believe what's in the news, and that bothers me. That now suddenly you can't say, well, this is true. No, it's not true.
The truth is
We're
not,
going to believe what we want.
the truth is no
And-
longer true. And when that happens,
That
when he
scares
has
me.
single-handedly made the truth not true, when that happens, chaos ensues.
That
and
scares me.
Every
Scary.
tyrant, every martinet, every criminal has a place at the table, and the playing field is constantly being re-leveled to accommodate.
Well, it's like democracy itself is what I'm just scared at. The whole thing with the Constitution, the First Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and others that just are under attack, and others. I mean, I received an email from actually a former student who said that I better be aware of the danger of this so-called caravan that's coming, to the.
Former students
that-
warning you of the.
Yes, and he said, because they're going to come in, and I'm afraid they're going to rape and kill my wife. And now this is a student. I said, what? He said, yes. Why aren't you afraid of that? He said, these are murderers and gang members.
That's frightening.
That's frightening.
It's scary. And this person is now in his midway 30s, always kind of an intelligent person, but they're just following, this view that they're not looking at any other sources. That really bothers me.
And that is what happened with Hitler. Everybody looked at it and followed him and followed him. I used to ask my father, how did this happen? How did the Holocaust happen? Why didn't anybody do anything? And sometimes I think about us and I think, we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And I don't get that.
I could never answer my students with that. And what scares me is this kind of blind following without questioning and
Without truth. Without
Yeah.
truth. The truth is no longer true. And which allows frightened, angry people to latch on and
we're getting these extremes.
Yeah.
On either side. Where the moderate is now no longer there. It's this extreme or this extreme.
But the left extreme, well, it's made to be extreme, or it's construed as extreme. When kindness is extreme, when compassion becomes extreme, this is related to the truth not being true. And somehow everything is in balance because the right is behaving so atrociously, therefore the left in response refractorily is behaving atrociously. It's not. We are trying to maintain the truth and speak the truth and be kind and compassionate, and that is not extreme. It may be radical, but it's not extreme.
Well, happy Thanksgiving. This is such a terrible way to end the show. It seems so negative, and I know there are good
can
things.
I end with the positive
You
things? Because
certainly can.
I just came from the veterans ceremony down at the park.
Yeah.
And one thing is, with our veterans, that no matter what their politics are, they sacrifice. Those that died didn't say, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm black, I'm white, or anything else with that. And that's what I think is going to hold us together. We are one country, and we're under attack, and we have been at the time of the Civil War and many other times, I think. But I think as a nation, we got to come together and not have these just extremes and be like the veterans that are willing to sacrifice for their country. So I think that's positive.
I'm so glad my son had you for history. Thank you so much, Richard,
thank you for
joining
coming.
us.
Thank you.
Happy holidays to everybody. And we hope to get this Earl Mills on the show very soon.
He is great.
He's great.
Great stories. No one has the history like he does, so he would be
Terrific.
great.
Good, thanks.